On a day when Hamas announced that it had accepted a ceasefire proposal brought forth by Egypt and Qatar, Israel declared that it was going ahead with its offensive in Rafah and signaling the beginning of what is currently being described as a limited operation. Israeli tanks rolled into the southern Gaza city late on Tuesday. Remember, there has been tremendous international pressure on Israel not to press ahead with the military operation in Rafah, where over half the Gazan population has been sheltering for months now. Even US President Joe Biden's Israel's strongest ally has repeatedly conveyed to Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu that Tel Aviv must not pursue this path as it is likely to lead to much further devastation in the embattled enclave. Netanyahu has always maintained that Israel would only be driven by its national security interests and not by any external pressure. And now a very important piece of information has been reported by the Western media. A senior US administration official has been quoted as saying that last week the United States paused a bomb shipment for Israel over concerns that the latter was going ahead with a major ground operation in Rafah. The shipment consisted of 1,800 bombs weighing 907 kilos and another 1,700 bombs weighing 225 kilos each. The officials said Israel has not fully addressed US concerns over humanitarian needs of civilians in Rafah. Predictably, Israeli military officials have tried to play down the US move. Israel Defense Forces spokesperson Daniel Hagari told a news conference that the US had provided unprecedented security assistance since the beginning of the war, adding that disputes between the allies were resolved behind closed doors in a matter-of-fact way. He also added, "We are responsible for the security interests of the State of Israel and we are attentive to the interests of the United States in the region." Now, this report emerges even as overnight there were further Israeli airstrikes in the Gaza Strip, hours after Israeli forces backed by tanks took control of the Palestinian side of the key Rafah crossing on the border with Egypt. The Israeli bombardment was particularly intense around Rafah. Local medics said 7 members of one family were killed in a single strike. Rafah has been a key entry point for aid and the only exit for people who are able to flee since the beginning of the war between Israel and Hamas last October. The crossing remains closed as of now, but the Israeli military has said it is reopening the nearby Kerem Shalom crossing, which had been closed for 4 days because of Hamas rocket fire. On Monday, the Israeli military ordered tens of thousands of civilians to begin evacuating nearby eastern parts of Rafah city ahead of what it called a limited operation to eliminate Hamas fighters and dismantle infrastructure. Efforts still continue to reach a ceasefire alongside the release of Israeli hostages and Palestinian prisoners. In Cairo, delegations from Israel and Hamas have resumed negotiations through mediators. The senior US administration official who has been quoted, though not named, by the Western media has reportedly also said, and I quote, "The US position has been that Israel should not launch a major ground operation in Rafah, where more than 1 million people are sheltering with nowhere else to go. We've been engaging in a dialogue with Israel in our strategic consultative group format on how they will meet the humanitarian needs of civilians in Rafah and how to operate differently against Hamas there than they have elsewhere in Gaza. Those discussions are ongoing and have not fully addressed our concerns, as Israeli leaders seem to approach a decision point on such an operation. We began to carefully review proposed transfers of particular weapons to Israel that might be used in Rafah. This began in April. As a result of that review, we have paused one shipment of weapons last week. It consists of 1,800 2,000 LB bombs and 1,700 500 LB bombs. We are especially focused on the end use of the 2,000 LB bombs and the impact they could have in dense urban settings, as we have seen in other parts of Gaza. We've not made a final determination on how to proceed with this shipment." The official also stated, "For certain other cases at the State Department, including joint direct attack munition kits, we are continuing the review. None of these cases involve imminent transfers. This is about future transfers." The officials stressed that the shipments were unrelated to last month's $17 billion military aid package but had been drawn from previously appropriated funds. The larger 2,000 lb bombs are most likely to be Mk-84s or possibly BLU 109s or both. The former is a cheap general-purpose munition and the latter a penetration bomb designed for use against hardened or underground targets. Both can be fitted with Joint Direct Attack munition kits that deliver precision capability using satellite navigation. Laser guidance kits can also be fitted. These bombs can be made to be very accurate down to just a few meters. But in a dense urban environment like Gaza, the risk of so-called collateral damage is very high, and that is where the concern lies. The smaller 500 lb bombs can also be fitted with guidance units dropped from jets. Such weapons are likely to be used not just in Gaza but also against targets in southern Lebanon, belonging to the Iran-backed group Hezbollah, which has been involved in almost daily cross-border exchanges of fire with Israeli forces since the beginning of the Gaza war. The weapons being held back by the US are related to a future delivery, so it's unlikely to have any immediate impact. But given the rate at which Israel is bombing, it will likely affect future strikes fairly soon. Reports say this is a clear message from Washington, which is growing increasingly concerned about Israel's campaign in Gaza. Almost 35,000 people have been killed in Gaza since the war began, according to the territory's Hamas-run health ministry. Let's now also take a quick look at the significance of Rafah and why Israel has moved into the city. Israel Defense Forces sent tanks into the city in southern Gaza on Tuesday, as it said that the terms of the ceasefire deal were still undecided. Israel has claimed that the Palestinian side of the Rafah border is being used for terrorist activities. Any border control is an important strategic objective, and the seizure of this one allows Israel to control the key entry and exit point with Egypt. Israeli military officials have not put a timeline on their operation in Rafah but may not want to relinquish the site soon. A presence there brings Israel closer to cutting off any Hamas leaders in Rafah and allows control of aid convoys as well as other traffic. The crossing has been a lifeline to the outside world for Palestinians in Gaza, allowing the delivery of aid and the evacuation of patients from a collapsed healthcare system. Closing it is a death sentence against the people of Gaza, particularly the ill and injured, says the Palestinian-run Gaza Crossings Authority. The only other crossing point in the south, Kerem Shalom, through which most aid to Gaza has been delivered recently, had been closed after a Hamas rocket fire but has now been reopened.
Last night, with the approval of the War Cabinet, I ordered an operation in Rafah. Within hours, our forces raised the Israeli flags at the Rafah crossing and removed the Hamas's flags. The mission in Rafah serves two primary objectives: securing the return of our abductees and eliminating Hamas. We've previously demonstrated that military pressure on Hamas is crucial for hostage release. The Hamas proposal yesterday aimed to prevent our forces entry into Rafah, but it failed. The War Cabinet unanimously deemed the Hamas's proposal far from Israel's necessary requirements. Israel will not permit Hamas to reinstate its rule in Gaza or rebuild its military capabilities aimed at